Well, hey y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I'm Susan, your hostess, and we're in the kitchen today. We're going to be doing some uh, cowboy candy, but we're going to be using a mix of mostly banana peppers and a few of the jalapeno peppers. So this will be a milder version, and I wrote out the recipe two different ways, and I'll explain to you why. Um, the first recipe is to tell me for how many, if I had like 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pound, or 4 pounds of peppers. Okay, so the second recipe is for 5 pounds of hot peppers, which is what I have today. I have a mix of mostly banana peppers and a few jalapeno peppers. You can use whatever kind of hot peppers you want to use. You can actually mix in some sweet peppers as well if that's what you want. It really doesn't matter as long as they're, it's kind of a hot, spicy, hot, sweet finished product. So you want it a little bit of heat in there. So for every pound of fresh hot peppers, I would use 2/3 cup of a quality cider vinegar or a 5% white vinegar. And I would use 2 cups of sugar for each pound. So I'm doing 5 pounds. But if you're going to can this, you don't want to do just 1 pound to can because your recipe is only going to make 2 half pints or 1 pint. So here's the deal. A lot of people will take this recipe and they only go to the store and they buy a pound of peppers and they want some cowboy candy on hand because they're fixing to have a party. So they go and make the recipe and they come up with 2 half pints or 1 pint jar. They do not put it through a hot bath canner. They put it into the refrigerator and use it immediately. They will probably use it within 1 to 2 weeks, maybe a month. I'm just guessing how long they would leave it in the refrigerator. So if you were going to can it, you would need at least 2 pounds of your hot peppers and 4 half pint jars. You would not can this in pints unless you had a larger batch like what I'm doing today, because you have to have at least 4 jars going into your hot water bath to can safely. So we want to follow the rules and can as safely as we possibly can. So I hope I've explained that part to you. So 1 pound of hot peppers would equal 2 half pints or 1 pint. 5 pounds of hot peppers will equal 10 half pints or 5 pints. You got to remember that a pint jar holds 1 pound of food. So a half pint would hold what? 8 ounces or half a pint. So that is the rules to follow if you're going to can cowboy candy. So what is the recipe? I have multiplied this out for my convenience and for yours. And I'm doing this for 5 pounds of hot peppers because that's what I had on hand. I would need 3 1/3 cups of my 5% vinegar or my apple cider vinegar. I would need 10 cups of sugar. Remember, the recipe for 1 pound calls for 2/3 cup of cider vinegar or 5% vinegar and 2 cups of sugar. So I have just multiplied this out by 5 to come up with my numbers. Then you're going to get into your spices. My spices, and I will have both recipes in the description box below this video, by the way, but I've multiplied all that out, and I'm going to use 1 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, 1 1/4 teaspoon of celery seed, 5 tablespoons of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper or red pepper flakes, and then I'm going to follow the directions. And my directions are to slice your jalapenos. Now you're going to get more or less depending on how big you slice your jalapenos. I chose to slice them thin, so I ended up with exactly 5 pints. But if you slice them thicker, you may get a different number of jars. Just be aware of that. So you're going to mix your vinegar, your sugar, and your seasonings. You're going to bring that to a boil. Then you're going to simmer it for 5 minutes. At that point, you're going to add in your hot peppers and simmer for 5 more minutes. You're going to use sterile jars, whether you choose half pints or pints. They need to be sterilized. To sterilize your jars, you're going to bring your hot water bath canner up to boiling, and you'll see steam coming out around the edge of the lid, and you'll time it for 10 minutes. That will sterilize your jars. You're going to fill your jars to 1/4 inch headspace. You're going to debubble, check to make sure that you're at 1/4 inch headspace, and add more liquid if you need to. And you're actually going to spoon your product into the jars and then backfill with the liquid. So, you want to strain those hot peppers and put them into the jars first and then fill with your liquid. If you have liquid left over, can it. You can can your liquids at 1 inch headspace because it's a liquid. You can can it safely with 1 inch of headspace. You're going to process these in your hot water bath canner for 15 minutes, whether it's half pints or pints. And then you're going to remove your jars, allow them to cool to room temperature for 12 to 24 hours. Then you're going to check for seals. If the jars did not seal for whatever reason, you're going to put them into your refrigerator and you're going to use them up immediately. Or you can recan them. I can take, if I had, say, 2 of my jars did not seal properly, I can take them out of that jar and put it into half pints and run it through my hot water bath canner safely and recan those. So just so you're aware, that can happen. And you do want to check your seals. You do want to remove those bands, wash your jars, label them, and store them properly in a dark room. A dark, cool room is how you store any kind of home canning. So let's get in the kitchen and let's get started. Alright, I've got a bowl here for my stems. And I've got a bowl over here to put my sliced jalapenos in. And I'm going to remove the stems and I'm just going to throw them away. I am not getting rid of the seeds, but if you have a long potato peeler, you can go inside these and pull out a lot of those seeds if you want them de-seeded. And I'm just going to cut these kind of small rings. And I'm going to get rid of the very tip. So we're just going to continue to slice these up. So you can see how small I've sliced these. Okay, I'm down to the last of the peppers, getting them sliced. And I have quite a bowl going over here. Last 3 peppers, y'all. And into the bowl. And one escape. Our chickens have been working on a head of cabbage out here. We had left over a partial head, and I'm just going to throw out some of these end pieces of these peppers. These are really good to give to chickens. It helps them lay in the wintertime. So if you give them any kind of peppers in the wintertime, it'll help them with their laying. Helps to warm them up. And they don't taste the heat in the pepper, so they just enjoy the little treat that they're getting. This is probably one of the last fresh snacks they're going to get for the season. And a couple of them over there are still working on that cabbage. And they're down here working. And of course, Mr. Roo is over here watching diligently as a gentleman, allowing them to eat first. I think the temperature is going to get up to about 60 degrees today. We've uncovered our turnip greens and our grapevine, but before evening I will be out here again covering them up for another frosty night. I want to keep them alive as long as possible to help the grapevine to get a good root system going, but also to harvest some fresh turnip greens, not only for us but for the chickens. Our rooster's in there enjoying some of the snack now. Let's get back in the house. We got cowboy candy to make. And here are all the jalapenos and banana peppers that I have chopped. Great big bowl of these, y'all. Don't they look good? We're going to get those into jars and get them canned up here in just a moment. Okay, I pulled out a rather tall stock pot because I'm going to be putting all the jalapenos in there as well. But I have pulled out 10 cups of raw sugar. We're trying to switch over to the raw sugar. We're going to see how it does with our diet and with the weight loss journey that we're on. I understand that using raw sugar is better for you. So we're going to add this to our pot. Now my heat has not been turned on yet. And here comes the rest of the sugar. I'm also going to add in 3 1/3 cup of white 5% vinegar. You want to check that acidity on your vinegar, y'all. Some stores are selling 4%, and you do not want to use that. Now in this I have my turmeric, my celery seeds, and my pepper flakes. I'm going to get those in there. And this is 10 tablespoons of garlic powder. We're going to give that a good stir. And we are going to be stirring this to keep it from burning the bottom of my stock pot because of the sugar content while it is coming to a boil. Then we're going to turn our heat down a little bit and allow it to simmer for 5 minutes. Then we will add our jalapeno peppers back. Once it reaches simmer stage again, we will time it for 5 minutes. A good cook will always clean as she goes. So I'm going to clean a little bit, and we're going to also wipe down the sink because we're going to be putting our pot in the sink when we go to can because my kitchen is so small. I'm going to get my hands washed. My first step is to wash with soap and water. My second step is to scrub with some baking soda and a little bit of soap. And I just keep a little jar of baking soda in my kitchen for such things as this. So I'm just going to wipe my hands with the baking soda and a little bit of soap. And then we're going to scrub our hands again. This helps to get rid of any of those oils on your hands that were left from your peppers. Now the third step is to use something that has citric acid in it. This is lime juice. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the lime juice to my hand. And that's going to break up any residual oils that might be left on my hands. And then I'm going to rinse. Now my hands are clean. And I can go on about some other things while I'm waiting for my sugar to come up to temperature. You'll notice too that I have moved my canning pot back here, my hot water bath canner on the back burner. I have it on coming up to temperature, and we just are going to continue to stir this until it comes to a boil, and then we're going to lower that temperature for a simmer for 5 minutes. So you see that the turmeric has given it a beautiful golden color. Very nice. Stage. I'm going to turn my burner down and allow this to simmer for 5 minutes. My timer's going off, and it's time to start adding these pepper rings into my brine. And I'm losing them out of my bowl. I'm going to mix them into the brine. We're going to bring this back up to a simmer. Allow this to simmer for 5 minutes. And my brine is just about at a simmer. We will set the timer for 5 minutes once it comes to a simmer. Y'all, I'm going to move my camera back just a little bit so I don't get any muck on it. My jars are out of the canner. I'm going to grab a funnel, and I'm going to fill them with a slotted spoon first. So I'm just going to put a few in each jar to get that jar, make sure it's acclimated to the right temperature. And we'll see how many jars we actually get out of this. Now you got to remember that I am multiplying that recipe by 5. right, let me find my debubbler. Okay, I've got to adjust at least one of these jars. That one needs to be adjusted. So give me just a second. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the liquid off of that one. Double check. That's perfect. We're going to get these jars cleaned up and get them banded, the lids on them and banded. Then I'll pull out the rest of my jars and fill up as much of the brine as I possibly can. And I will go over the outside of this a couple of different times before I put those lids on, because I want to make sure I've got all that sugar off of my lids, off the rims. And this also gives you a chance to check for any cracks that might be in the jars that you missed. Get rid of that. I've had my lids soaking in hot water. Now, Ball doesn't recommend this anymore, but I still do it because I think it gives them a better seal. And why take chances? 4 fingers to center that lid. Get your pointer finger ready, place it on that lid and drop that band. And we're going to finger tighten it this way once. And then I'm going to use this little handy dandy vintage tool and finger tighten with 3 fingers and drop that into my canner. With the brine, because that makes a great marinade for meat. Got 9 pints in my canner. 5 of them have the Cowboy candy in them. 3 of them have the brine, which will be a marinade. We're going to wait for this to get a good steam going around the outside of the canner by the lid. Then we're going to set our timer for 15 minutes. Alrighty, the timer has gone off, folks. We're gonna turn that burner off, remove the lid away from you. I'm gonna let that water calm down just a tad before I start removing the jars. And the first jar out is the marinade. Look at that beautiful marinade. There's the brine and the Cowboy candy. And that brine is a boiling in those jars, y'all. Well, friends, we are at the end of the canning adventure. I have 5 pints of jalapeno candy, 4 pints of the marinade, cooling. They will sit overnight. And then tomorrow I'll get them washed up, the bands removed, washed up, and get them labeled and stored into my long-term storage. Thank you for coming along, and may you be fully blessed.